Italy is the 8th largest economy in the world by GDP and is renowned for its delicious Neapolitan pizzas, tempting pasta, rich history rooted in the Roman Empire, thrilling sports car designs, and don't forget a highly regarded fashion industry. But, the Italy of today is a far cry from what it once was. The only countries in the Eurozone that are currently much poorer than they were 20 years ago, which are Italy and Greece, leading to a depressing picture. However, this situation is not the only thing to be worried about. Italy is in a worse situation than previously believed, with depressing economic data creating a gloomy future. Italy's fall appears concerning, ranking 5th in the world in terms of public debt, facing a depressing youth, where the unemployment rate is equivalent to Egypt and Albania, and going through an alarming rate of businesses closing. What led Italy, the cradle of ancient Rome and a shining example of cultural heritage, to slide into such a worrisome cycle of economic decline? To understand this, we must examine the complex connection of historical, economic, and socio-political factors that have led to the Italian economy's present state. Due to the extensive damage and disruption brought on by the war, Italy experienced a severe economic downturn after World War II. Infrastructure, industries, and the nation's general economic stability were in shambles. The United States launched the Marshall Plan in an effort to aid in reconstruction and stop the rise of Soviet influence in Western Europe. The United States provided a sizable economic support package known as the Marshall Plan, sometimes known as the European Recovery Program, to aid Western European countries, particularly Italy, in recovering from the effects of war. This program, which ran from 1947 to 1951, was designed to offer money, materials, and technical know-how to help war-torn nations rebuild their economies. Italy, a key player in Cold War strategy, was one of the countries to benefit from this assistance. The Marshall Plan's financial infusion significantly aided in the rehabilitation of Italy's industries, infrastructure, and important economic sectors. To prevent European countries from being influenced by the Soviet Union and communism, which was a major concern during the early Cold War years, was one of the Marshall Plan's primary goals. The United States wanted to strengthen democratic institutions in European countries, thus it helped Italy and other Western European countries recover. Italy saw a tremendous period of economic expansion from the 1950s through the 1970s, when it became the second largest economy in Europe, only behind Germany. From labor unions and strikes, political unrest, the oil crisis, and price increases. A wave of strikes and labor unions was one of the biggest problems Italy had in the 1970s. Manufacturing and transportation workers, among others, went on strike to demand better working conditions, greater pay, and stronger labor rights. These labor disputes frequently resulted in production halts, which had an impact on productivity and industrial output. A boom in social and political movements also occurred in the nation, with numerous organizations pushing for political and social change. And the unpredictable business environment brought on by this tumultuous political environment discouraged investments and hampered long-term economic planning. And all this happened during the oil crisis of 1973. The crisis made Italy's economic problems even worse. Major oil-producing nations established an oil embargo after the Arab-Israeli conflict, which sharply increased oil prices. Italy, which depended significantly on oil imports, had to deal with rising energy prices that had a ripple effect on several businesses. The rising cost of production led to inflation and a decline in consumer purchasing power. Italy's currency at the time was the lira. A dramatic decline in the currency's value caused many to lose faith in its stability. The economic landscape of Italy underwent a significant transformation in the middle of the 1980s as a result of a number of changes that were put in place and were essential in reviving the economy. In addition to assisting Italy in overcoming its economic difficulties, these reforms also helped to pave the way for better productivity, improved exports, and revived economic growth in industries such as fashion, technology, manufacturing, and infrastructure. The Italian government implemented labor market reforms with the goal of modernizing hiring procedures in order to address the labor market issue. These changes increased hiring and firing flexibility, which made it simpler for enterprises to adjust to shifting market conditions. The enhanced adaptability helped businesses better adapt to changes in demand and encouraged the creation of jobs. Additionally, Italy advocated trade liberalization policies that lower trade barriers and promote greater participation in international markets. Italian companies now have more opportunities to export their goods and services, improving their competitiveness on the international market. The nation was able to increase its market share in other countries thanks to its industry specialization in fields like machinery, fashion, and transportation. The adoption of the euro, the common currency of the EU, resulted in a substantial change in Italy's economic environment. Italy had its own currency, the Italian lira, before joining the euro, allowing it to modify its exchange rate in response to changes in the global economy. Italy lost control over its unique exchange rate when it adopted the euro, making it unable to unilaterally discount or appreciate its currency to address trade imbalances or economic shocks. Not only that, but the adoption of the euro also resulted in a loss of competitiveness, particularly in sectors where price competition is crucial. It was difficult for Italy to maintain positive trade balances since it was unable to devalue its currency to make imports more expensive or exports cheaper, especially when competing with nations with weaker currencies. Positively, the euro reduced transaction costs and eliminated exchange rate swings, facilitating simpler cross-border trading inside the Eurozone. The export-oriented industries in Italy benefited the most from this. High government spending, particularly in the context of generous pension programs, has a negative impact on the Italian economy. These expenditures have helped to create a noticeable and worrisome debt-to-GDP ratio while also offering social assistance. The huge welfare system and an aging population add to the strain on the government's finances. Chronic budget deficits have been caused by high government expenditure in comparison to available receipts, necessitating borrowing to close the gaps. As a result, Italy now ranks among the top nations in the world for having the highest debt-to-GDP ratio. Additionally, youth unemployment is a serious problem in Italy. Young people who lack contacts and experience are finding it more difficult to find employment as a result of the protective labor regulations. As a result, the younger generation struggles to get work experience, which prevents them from developing the skills and credentials that would normally make them desirable to employers. Additionally, Italy experiences regional disparities that result from a complex interaction of historical and cultural contrasts that create economic inequality between the northern and southern areas. Early industrialization and trade historically favored the north, while the south lagged behind due to rural economies. Cultural differences have widened this disparity, with the North encouraging innovative and business-oriented attitudes while the South's greater familial bonds occasionally discourage taking entrepreneurial risks. Due to poor infrastructure, unequal educational possibilities, and a lack of employment options in the South, these discrepancies are made even worse. Although Italy has world-famous enterprises in the automotive, fashion, agricultural, and tourism fields, there is a problem with the comparatively low incomes in these fields. Despite their prominence on a worldwide scale and economic importance, many positions in these sectors, notably in tourism, sometimes pay below average wages given the high cost of living in the nation. For instance, a sizable amount of the workforce in the tourism industry works in employment that may have lower compensation because of things like seasonal variations, fierce competition, and the frequency of temporary or part-time labor. Additionally, the prevalence of low-paying occupations in sectors like tourism and agriculture can have an impact on income disparity and impede upward mobility, especially for younger people looking for stable and well-paying opportunities. The economy's reliance on these industries also leaves it vulnerable to outside shocks, as seen during times of world crises when tourism revenues might drastically decline. In conclusion, stereotypes and reality are frequently present in the stories surrounding the Italian economy. Despite the fact that Italy has many difficulties, such as a difficult labor market, a high level of public debt, and regional inequalities, it is important to remember that the country continues to be a strong and influential participant on the world economic arena. It is detrimental to Italy's tremendous assets and accomplishments to depict the country just negatively. With that, let's end the video. This is Visionomics. Signing out.